Welcome to another episode of the Holistic Sister Circle. Today we have Katherine with us, and Katherine was in the corporate positioning world in publishing and advertising for over 20 years. She had breast cancer. She was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2016 and had a mastectomy, chemotherapy, radiation, and hormonal therapy as part of her treatments. She decided that she needed to heal her body after those harsh treatments, and through her research in cancer survival, she came up with corporate career and got herself certified as a mental health and cancer coach. Now she's training to become an evidence-based trauma tapping practitioner to help women heal from all of their past traumas and limiting beliefs to live a healthy, rich, and meaningful life. Katherine, I so quote unquote butchered your intro, but that's all good. We're gonna fix it
Oh
through the
gosh.
editing.
Oh, Bea, look, honestly, this is life, isn't it? I mean, we could have the best intentions and sometimes, yeah, we just get stuck. And I've been feeling stuck myself in the last 2 days. I could not articulate something to do with, yeah, maybe the moon, hey? So don't worry. Loving you and thank you so much. I'm so humbled with that amazing introduction and bio. Sometimes I just still need to pinch myself. I can't believe I survived all that and gone through all.
Yeah. And this is amazing. I'm grateful that we can share this with our listeners today because I've actually come across quite a few women who have battled cancer. They were given 6 months, 2 years, a certain time frame to live, and they went and they did what they needed to do. They healed, they got into their spiritual awakening, they started learning more about themselves, and they actually removed any signs of it, and now they're living 10, 12, 14 years cancer free. So one, I just commend you. I'm so grateful that you are here to share this story with us. And before we really get started, I would love to know, where is Katherine today? What are you up to right now? What does your life entail?
Oh, wow. Where do I begin? Well, Catherine is at a point in her life at the moment where she's deep diving. She's deep diving into that inner healing. You know, 2016 January when I was diagnosed, it was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe that was happening. It would never ever like sickness was never a thing for me. I just like I'm a bull. I just keep going, and life is just like throwing me all the challenges, and I'll go and I'll just take everything. And I never knew how to say no. I couldn't pause. I just didn't know how to relax because I just needed to prove myself to everyone, including myself. I think the biggest person I needed to prove to was myself. And today, Catherine, today, she is working hard towards understanding her a lot more. Um, she's embracing all of the things that's come her way and getting really curious with what's happened and perhaps also sinking deeper into the why. Like what's the learning in here for me? And I don't like to see life as, oh, I'm 8 years, since my diagnosis, I'm done. It's a tick box. It's not really. I am still committed to, my daily healing, my daily life. And so curiosity, ever open to change and learning. And um, Brene Brown is my biggest mentor, I like to say, and she's a huge inspiration to me because she taught me so much about how being vulnerable and being broken is actually like just a sign of courage. That to me was life changing. Yeah. So that's Catherine now.
I love that. Well, thank you for sharing that with us and really blessing us with your presence today. Now, in 2016 when this all happened and you got that news, where were you and how did you feel in that moment?
Hmm. I think I would start by, sharing a little bit of how it got there. So, um, 2015, December. I think it was November. Yeah. We were out having lunch and, I was still breastfeeding my daughter and I was trying to cut my lunch. I can't remember what I was having, but it there was this sharp pain on my right breast and it made me drop the knife. That was how sharp and excruciating it was. It was painful. It made me drop my knife. I just went, "Oh my God, that was painful." And then it kind of just went away. And my husband was like, "That's really unusual." And I mean, yeah, I know. But because I was still breastfeeding, so I thought, oh, maybe it was just something to do with, just being blocked or whatever. I always had issues with breastfeeding. Um, and I just didn't put my finger in it. I just went, this is normal, it's what it is. But then my husband said, I think, you should just go and get checked. And I said, oh yeah, yeah, okay, I'll get to it. So I guess it took me about 2 weeks to try and get an appointment with the GP. And the GP, and by the time I got in, it was probably the week of Christmas. So, and I can't remember. It's all quite fuzzy with the time frames, but I know for sure it was the week of Christmas that I got to see the GP. And she said she felt my breast and she could look. Don't worry. Yes, I can feel some lumps. I'm very sure it's a cyst. What I'm gonna do is to write you up for a mammogram, January, because it's the week of Christmas, and they all kind of open for business again on the 4th of Jan in New Zealand. And so I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. It didn't even, cross my mind that it could be a possibility at that time. But when I gone in to get my mammogram done that morning, I went on my own and I thought, I'm a survivor, right? Nothing will ever phase me. So I went on my own. As soon as the lady just went, oh, we need a couple more scans and a couple more scans. Oh, we need to send you for an ultrasound right now. I will never forget how anxious I felt. Like the anxiety was like this burning fire from my gut. I was just scared as hell in that room. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is not good. And so the next day I went for a biopsy and I basically didn't sleep all night because I was just thinking about death. That was where my brain took me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. I thought of the worst. So where I was back then, I was really depressed. I was highly anxious. I couldn't sleep. I was crying myself to sleep. And the next day, basically, nothing made sense to me. I just went with the flow. And when I begged the radiologist, was very senior in his role, who did my biopsy, I said, please tell me what you see. He goes, legally, I'm not supposed to tell you. I said, please just tell me what you see because I can't wait 10 days to know the results. And he goes, look, it does look malignant, but I want to reassure you. And he held my hand and he said, there's 26 types of breast cancers and you just might get a good type. And I held on to that. And that was my faith. Like, I held on to that. And I remember sitting in the car after that biopsy and telling my husband, I think you need to make plans, you
Mhm.
know, think about what we're going to do with the kids. And I was in a really dark place. And all I could think about was like my own funeral. So it took me a while from that point to snap out of that darkness. I was filled with shame because I couldn't tell people about my diagnosis because I felt like I will be judged. Like, like my body failed me. How could I actually get cancer, right? Yeah, so it was a very dark place, and I can talk about it now because I've done a lot of work, within myself, and allow myself to open up to receiving treatments, to receiving support. And I think that was what helped me come out of that darkness, come out of that very depressive state, and allowing myself to start healing.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm literally getting teary-eyed and
Oh,
emotional, like, if you sharing this story. And, for
yeah.
me, it's so big because I don't think people realize, like, your belief, like, it is number 1. It is the number 1 thing that you can do to be on the journey of healing and removing and just putting yourself in a position to win. And, based on where you are today, what would you tell 2016-year-old Katherine, if you could? If you could tell her one thing, what would you say?
Yeah. Oh, so much. But I think the one thing that really stopped me for a while, like, I think the shame was a huge thing, that I needed to try and learn how to navigate. Um, if I had the opportunity to just sit in that room with Catherine back in 2016, I'll just say to her, "It's okay. You got this." Like, you're not alone in this.
Mhm.
And you allow that pain to come while having that right support around you, you'll be all right. It's okay. You didn't fail. This is going to be
Mhm.
the new, it's a new journey, it's a new pathway. That is the biggest lesson and the biggest sort of how shall I say this? Like the biggest sort of stone that I have to turn, Like there's so many things at the time, everything was coming to me, all the treatments, all the advice, all solicited and unsolicited solicited advice that I get with a lot of love from people. But I think I needed to listen to myself the most.
Mm,
Yeah. And trusting that voice. I think that was hard. And that's still evolving.
yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. How did this, if you don't mind us sharing this too or
Yeah.
talking about this, but how did this affect or did it affect your relationship with your husband and your children? Like, what did that look like?
Oh, what a great question, Via. I think, no, I know that because they were top of mind for me, my two kids, and when I was in that car and when I was playing out my own funeral, I thought to myself, this can't be it because I got two kids. I can't just let this roll the way it should. I need to take charge of it. And I need my children to have a mother. And I want to be that mother because, they were young. Like, I mean, this is going back because Charlotte was only two. She's 11 now because she was
Mhm.
only two. So, and Ethan was like 5. And they're young, they're little. So they were my strongest reason to live. They
Mhm.
were core purpose. So I had to get that out of myself, but I had to sit with myself in that whole I am broken, I'm dealing with all this, it's too much. But I needed to move through those emotions and acknowledge that before I could see, hang on a minute, I need to be around. I need that purpose. And I think also every day when I see my kids, I know that every day is a gift that I'm with them. So they remind me day in, day out that I have that time and I'm treasuring everything. And honestly, Via, I never ever saw life that way. My entire life pre-diagnosis was all about proving myself to everyone else. And that was my own inner healing, inner trauma that I had to deal with, that spirit that I had to sort of face. Um, and so that really also allowed me to move in that space, and it takes time. Um, and I think, that gelled my relationship with my husband because it made us really had to have those difficult conversations of mortality, and how life will be if and when things don't, always go to plan, which I mean, how often does it, right? I mean, we still get
Right.
when we were completely off track. But I have to say this for the rest of the people who are going through the same journey or have gone through it, and I really need to say this. Um, I completely neglected my husband as well because I
Mhm. Mm.
really wanted to share this because I was so focused on my own treatments and him being the person on the sideline, supporting me. I completely did not even ask him, "How are you doing, hubby?" Like it only came up 2 years post diagnosis when we were at I was invited to speak as someone who's gone through, breast cancer at the Pink Ribbon Breakfast. And he went on stage with me. And No kidding, like Via, that was the moment when I realized that he was not coping. He broke down on stage in front of the mic and shared how vulnerable it was for him to go through it. And I was just so shocked that I didn't even pause to ask him. Like, and then you know what the beautiful part is? That after that, a lot of men went up to him and go, dude, like, I know how you felt. My wife's going through treatment, or my wife have gone through treatment. And I want to say, so like you're so brave to go on stage. I see you, like all that support that came to him, like after that, it was so healing. Like, so it's so many things that were tough, but I want to say that we can evolve, and there are things that if we allow in that clarity bit by bit, that we can get there together, and we're stronger together now. So yeah, it's great. I'm so glad you asked me that question, because it's a big thing that we had to learn how to know about each other.
I love that. And, I think one of the things that I've just noticed just really being on the show and honestly being a host is we go through all of these stories about how our sisters were feeling in these times of need. But I was like, wait a minute, they're not the only ones being affected. Their children, their husbands, like, it's literally a family affair, and just because you're the one that is physically going through it, it doesn't mean that your family isn't taking on the toll emotionally. The partner that is the most supportive in your corner is now the one being the most neglected because you have that shame and that discomfort and really not wanting to open up. So, um thank you for sharing that. I think it's so big. It doesn't matter what battle you're facing, but the importance of letting your family, letting your union in, like, it's so important for healing. Now
100%.
now moving on to more of a, I don't wanna say this, that was humbling, so I appreciate that, but I wanna talk more about now your work. So pivoting forward to the work that you do now, share
Yeah.
a little bit more about that with us and what made you decide to say, "Okay, I'm actually gonna wear this as a badge of honor and move forward by helping other women with this as well."
Yeah. I have to say it didn't just come straight away. I had to sort of allow myself to transition from being a patient to being a survivor. And then now I like to call myself a thriver. And I think it came in stages. Like I was working towards the 5th year remission, and I told myself, okay, I need to understand a little bit more about what's going on with my body, because I thought that, I thought I was healthy. I was brought up with really good sort of food culture in Singapore, and my mom, because my grandmother passed away from diabetes, and my father has always battled with high blood pressure and high cholesterol. He never had diabetes, but the metabolic health issue has been very prevalent in my family. But I never thought that I'll be someone that would ever have anything wrong with my metabolic health, because my mom brought me up very strict. We have always been really mindful about sugar in all of our of diets, and we don't drink a lot of alcohol. But like I knew that my healthy wasn't really that healthy. It wasn't serving me. And so I was very curious about food, because my husband is a professional chef. So if I'm going to change the story about food, I need to get into the science of it in order for me to convince him to change any food the way we're eating as a family, right? So I went into deep dive into the science. I actually took a chemistry paper with a university here in New Zealand, and then I realized actually I want to go a little bit further, but I want to be doing more work outside of the hospital. So it wasn't that I didn't want to be a dietitian. I wanted to support people with changing the lifestyle like I am doing, and I have changed. And so I chose to become a health coach. And I went on a program that was developed by Precure in New Zealand. And I decided to certify myself as a health coach. And and then what piqued my interest later on after graduating from that certification was actually what's going on in my brain. I want to know why my thoughts are consistently telling me that I'm not good enough. And so I went through that advanced mental health certification, also through Precure. And then I realized, okay, hang on, now I'm knowing what's happening in my body, what's happening in my brain, why are we functioning the way we are? And then I wanted to get a little bit deeper because it took me a while for me to understand through my mental health coaching certification that I've had a traumatizing childhood. And that took me years for me to ever admit to myself that, oh, okay, we all have trauma. Yes. Some big, some small, it doesn't matter. We all have little life events that happen to us that create those limiting beliefs in our system that's stopping us from living our true, most valuable and meaningful life. And so that's when I decided, okay, fine, I need to know a little bit more about acceptance commitment therapy. I want to do a little bit more deep dive into that. And then I found tapping, which is emotional freedom technique. And so now I'm going through the additional certification to get myself accredited as a clinical trauma EFT practitioner. And the trauma doesn't have to be a big T trauma. Some people go through the big T trauma, some people go through small T. Most people have small T traumas. A small T trauma could be for me like, almost drowning, getting hit by the wave when I was trying to swim at the beach. So, like that is a small T trauma for me. But that had stopped me from swimming and being on the beach confidently. So, it was in stages when I decided that if I could improve on myself by learning and training myself a little bit further and deeper to understanding what's going on with me, that's when I can help people. And I was then poached by the Cancer Coach, a company based in the UK, and say, look, Katherine, you've got a great story. We want you because you're certified, you're trained, you've got insurance, you're ever evolving as a coach. We want you to help other cancer patients who are either newly diagnosed or finishing treatments to help them through that lifestyle shift. And so here I am, a couple of years after. I'm loving my space to helping people. I know that I need to do good and be useful, like what Arnold Schwarzenegger says. I love that he says that. Be useful, right? Being useful with myself and my survival is going to be great for me to help other people because that serves a purpose. And if I can help someone by sowing a seed and getting them curious, I think I've done my job.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. This is incredible. I actually have quite a few ladies in the community who honestly would love to connect with you. A lot of them too, just like what you were saying, they focus on really they've just they I know this one lady that I'm working with right now, she has a farm in Georgia, and she like, her goal, because she's also a cancer survivor and now thriver, and her goal really is to help those that are in transition or just coming into it themselves to have that therapy on her farm, and she
Yeah.
uses the horses and her animals to really help create this experience for them, and it's like a 4-day retreat like on her farm. It's really, really cool and special. And I just, I definitely commend the work that you all are doing. You have no idea you're on two different parts of the world,
Oh
but
God,
you're coming together and the mission is the same, right? So
absolutely.
it's so powerful to see. Now, for those people who maybe they're in maybe they don't necessarily have an illness like cancer, but maybe they're battling something themselves right now
Yeah.
that could potentially lead to that from a mental perspective if they don't do something now. What are some practical steps that you could give those people?
Mm. Oh yeah. That's such a great question because I think when I was going through, my 20s, my 30s, no one actually told me that I was, just battling chronic anxiety and stress. No one told me. I just kept going. I didn't recognize the signs. So for me, my advice to anyone that's currently, before your body even receives anything chronic, I'd like us to all get curious. Where is our body feeling the stress? Right? Have you got any physical symptoms? Are you sleeping badly? Is your body not metabolizing food properly that's causing a lot of, weight gain? Is your gut feeling really sore sometimes? I mean, the body knows. And if we allow ourselves to just pause for a minute and go, hang on, I haven't slept for a while in, a week or two. There's something going on, right? So let's just check in and go, okay, is there something going on in my life that's stopping me from having that relaxation that I'm meant to receive? Because, I mean, let's face it, we're not getting ahead in reducing a lot of those negative things that's happening around in the world. We're getting served instant news that's causing a lot of unresolved anxiety that we're bringing into bed every day that we're not really dumping out of our system. Our nervous system is actually going and functioning on hypervigilant every single day. We're not really allowing ourselves to regulate back to being in parasympathetic nervous state, which is rest and digest. We're just waking up, we're just doing the vicious cycle. So if that's you, if that is someone resonates with, oh my gosh, that's my pain point. I'm not dealing with my sleep very well. I'm gaining weight. I'm emotional eating. I'm needing alcohol to relax, or I'm needing coffee to get through the day. If this is you, like get someone to talk to you, get someone to hear you out. And if it means, reaching out to a coach or talking to your GP, go get someone to hear you out, okay? And don't let it sit and say, oh, that's just me, or let's not normalize those negative emotions. Let's try and get our body back to its optimal state, which is rest and digest, and not constantly thinking that something is going to threaten my safety.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Now, for those who are just looking to follow your journey and to learn more about you and your work, how can they find you? Share that
Yeah,
with me.
well, yeah, I do have a website. Humbly, it's a very humble website. I'm not very tech savvy. I'm better with people. So it's katherinefroggatt.co.nz. I'm also on Instagram as Katherine Froggatt, as well as Facebook, Katherine Froggatt Health Coach. So that's a way to find me. But I also love chatting with people, and I don't want people to just think, oh, she'll be too busy, or I don't want to get in touch with her. I always want to talk to people because it's never a sign of weakness to ask for help, okay? Because that's what I had to learn. And if we ask for help and open ourselves up to just receiving even the slightest little support or advice, do so, because you'll be really thankful for that. And what we're going to do together within the Holistic Sisters group is to try and help us live our best life. It's not
Mhm.
about perfection. It really is a journey. And if we can really start to amplify our support towards longevity and being around people that we really love and doing the things that we truly enjoy and that lights us up, I think that's us living our best life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Catherine. It was a pleasure connecting with you today.
Thank you, Via. I'm so humbled and honored to be part of your show. So thank you.
Queen, thank you so much for tuning in. It truly warms our heart that you're taking the time out of your day to connect with us. If you'd like to connect with our guests further, you can find their information located in the description section of this episode. And if you found this episode helpful, share with another queen. And don't forget to connect with the Holistic Sister Circle on Instagram and Facebook. And until next week, stay blessed. Mwah.